On the topic of propaganda and Gaza acting like Hollywood, I'll say the following. We are dealing globally, even outside of this conflict, with an information problem. And we need to start really and fully and thoroughly understanding this problem. It became very noticeable when Trump was running as president. Of course, many people understood the fake news problem even before then. I've discussed it on podcasts many months or years ago. It's a well-known issue, but now we are dealing with it on a scale that is both dangerous and perplexing. We have an information problem. There is no source for accurate and reliable information. There's no authority on true information. Therefore, there is no knowing what is true and what is false. Mainstream media is on a decline. They are notoriously biased. They get information too late. Social media platforms like X/Twitter have taken the forefront in information sharing, especially when it comes to rapid information sharing. If you are actively on Twitter and you're following any event in the world, you will get the quickest updates out there, not taking into account Telegram or WhatsApp groups where things could fly around really quickly as well. Twitter, X, is therefore becoming one of the primary sources of information in this world. That is both intriguing, really powerful on the one hand, and on the other hand, very destructive, potentially harming. On the positive side, you have information that you would otherwise find out hours or days later within minutes in front of you. And on the negative side, you are fed incorrect information, lies, fabricated information to a degree that can stir up such controversy it could tilt the entire world into a war. The Arabs and the Arab world are very good at propaganda. In the case of the Israel war that we're dealing with right now, they are doing a much better job, just as they have in previous attacks. If we go back just a year or two, when there were rockets flying, same thing. They are phenomenal at propaganda. I have some theories as to why that is. Maybe I'll touch on it soon. But the fact is they are. They are, in a sense, winning the information/propaganda war, and this is because they dedicate themselves to it, whereas Israel does not. To a large degree, Israel doesn't care, as would be the behavior of someone who deals with truth, someone who's honest. On the one hand, I can understand why they don't invest so much into it, yet on the other hand, I see how easily public opinion is swayed based on information and often propaganda. Which means that if Israel did step up, they did take it serious, and they did systematically share the truth, they'd potentially be seen in a much better light. But because they don't, and their enemy does, this is costing them. Again, in the global sense, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. We have an information problem from a tech perspective, from a historical perspective, and as we see now, from a survival perspective. If we don't find a solution through technology or by other means, policy and law, to sorting and verifying information, it could lead to unforeseeable catastrophes. Just look at how the world turned upside down under the lie, the fabrication, that Israel bombed a hospital. Not going to get into the hypocrisy of everyone who comes running and then says nothing when it's actually Hamas. Just look at how one story could turn the world upside down. Now imagine that's played out dozens of times a day, and it is. In the past 2 to 3 days, I've been sharing on my Twitter feed. Evidence has come up that clearly depicts the Hollywood-level production taking place in Gaza. People like myself know this. People who know Palestinians and understand the propaganda war know this. The IDF knows this. Intelligent human beings know this. People who are wholly absorbed in this topic and in this conflict know this, but the rest of the world doesn't. A very large portion of Palestinian supporters and sympathizers don't know this, and they'll never know it. It'll never hit their feed, and if it does, they'll just dismiss it. Evidence surfaces, and you see clearly how Palestinians fabricate just about everything and anything to gain sympathy from the world. The world, especially the half of the world that is sitting anxiously waiting for this content, gobbles it up and spits it back out. It affects them emotionally. It helps solidify their convictions about Israel and about the entire conflict. And it takes us further and further away from real resolution, real truth, ultimately. In these videos, you can clearly see, and here are some examples. Again, you could go to my Twitter feed and I'm posting this stuff. You could see it. In these videos, you can clearly see, for example, silicone babies being created, fake blood, wrapped up as though they're injured, and then you see an individual running with that silicone baby, and all the paparazzi, all the cameras are there taking pictures. On the rubble, there's a picture of a small individual wrapped up in white cloth as they wrap their dead. Only this individual is sitting up on an iPhone. There are videos of Palestinian children, against their will, by adults being powdered up with this gray powdery stuff that looks like that could have come from destroyed buildings and rubble. And then these kids are carried out and paraded in front of cameras. There are videos of two women sobbing and crying about the loss of a loved one. Those same two women are Hamas supporters, because we have footage of them with their rifles. There are videos of individuals who are straight up actors. Allahu Akbar when there's rockets flying. The next day he's crying because a rocket hit his home and he's in the hospital. And then the next day that same individual is healthy and fine on the street. There's a lot of this footage / evidence that comes out and dispels many, many lies. And quite frankly, showcases the Hollywood production going on in Gaza. The world, however, consumes this stuff and bases their opinion on it. As I said, the Arabs, they're phenomenal at propaganda. They have no qualms fabricating and lying straight through their teeth. The religious ones, the ones who actually follow the Quran, they take offense to this, right? Because it's not ethical to lie. But there are multiple reasons, multiple factors that contribute to the cognitive dissonance that allows that to take place, and how deeply that's embedded inside their society and inside the extreme elements of their society. But we're talking about not misunderstanding things. We're talking about openly lying and deceiving to gain world sympathy, and it works. They're doing this. They know they're doing this. I would venture to say that most Gazans are fully aware of the level of dishonesty taking place, and in some way they find it within themselves to be able to live despite knowing the lies they're telling the world. Okay, so we're dealing with a very dangerous information game. On occasion, when it spirals out of control, like in the case of the hospital, and there's so much outrage, many governments and intelligence agencies have to investigate it and then bring forward evidence to dispel and disprove the lies. But what about in all the cases that it doesn't create such tumult? It doesn't rock the world. It only influences millions of people to further hate Jews and hate America, so on. They're equally devastating, and there's so much of it. Okay, and it goes beyond just Hollywood production for video and picture. They will fabricate pictures through using AI. They will lie. They didn't just lie about the hospital bombing, they lied about the casualties. They will lie in general about casualties. The world will soak it up in an instant. Oh, they said 5,000 died? 5,000 died. Oh, let me placate you. Here's a book of names of the people who died. When you begin to fathom that you're dealing with an immoral, unethical group of human beings who have every justification in their mind to lie, to deceive, and therefore they act like toddlers, you begin to understand that you cannot trust a word that they report, a word out of their mouth. Even the videos and pictures that you're looking at could be completely fake and fabricated. But again, the portion of society who are consuming this and waiting for this, they're never going to see that or know that comprehensively. We are dealing with an information problem. And as I said, this is not about this particular war. This is a blanket problem. Very difficult to distinguish truth from falsehood. And then you have imbeciles who, despite all evidence, will continue to hold on to their conviction even after it's been dispelled. That, I would venture to say, is already evil. Supporting evil is evil. Lying, when your lies result in people supporting evil, when your lies result in the deaths of human beings, so on and so forth, is evil. There's no differentiation. Okay, now I have no solution. I'm a tech person myself. I'm seeing the trends in societal behavior. I see the problem. I haven't conceptualized the real solution yet. And I don't think anyone else has, or certainly there is no product out there yet to solve it. I imagine it'll have to be solved through technology. I just don't know yet how. I have some ideas, but it's a conversation for another time. We need to solve the information problem. There has to be an implemented, indisputable method of verification that at least 2/3 of the world adheres to. You'll always have a portion of the world who says, can't trust that either. And of course, every system will have its faults, but there should at least be a consensus amongst the moral democracies of the world, amongst, the top intellectuals, scientists, etc. With that being said, and once you fully understand who you're dealing with, you have to start with the basis that everything that is reported about Gaza is a lie, is not true. From there, you go. Is it true that the IDF are dropping bombs on Gaza? Yes. Is it true that the IDF warns and has warned civilians to leave the premises before they bomb? Yes. Those videos are out there, they're public, they are directly from the military. Is it true that babies die in these bombings? Yes. Are the numbers true that they are reporting? Probably not. And there's absolutely no way to verify it because, as we said, they will literally fabricate evidence, which is what they tried doing with the hospital. They will literally create videos, sound effects, all kinds of stuff to make it stick, to make it make sense. I think the takeaway here, and for now and on this topic, is that we have to take a deep, deep breath when it comes to everything online. These images are powerful, and they're designed to invoke emotion from both sides. When I share a video and an image of what took place, it's also designed to invoke emotion. The difference is, I didn't share footage right when this began. I started sharing footage of October 7th after I realized that this is an information war. When I saw that people are outwardly lying and denying that this took place, just like they did with the Holocaust, I'm like, whoa, I'm going to start pulling up, and I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures and videos that float around the jihadist Telegram groups, the Israeli groups, so on and so forth. I have access to years of information. So as a response, we share it. Understand this. Israelis don't typically share. You think when a rocket hits an Israeli building and a family is blown to bits, you think we don't have powerful images and imagery that we could share with the world? We don't typically do that because we honor the dead. This was the first time, this was the first attack that you saw a bit of a different side. Because Hamas were so brazen in publishing all of what they did, and we wanted the world to see it, you saw a bit of a different face to Israeli information sharing. So you saw a lot of stuff float around. Typically, when a rocket hits a building, we don't share images. We don't advertise our dead because it's not Hollywood. So we don't do what they do. But don't think it doesn't exist. What we see now is that they will take advantage of the fact that we are not Hollywood and advertising every little attack. That's why it's almost duty to share. Also, Hamas made a huge mistake by publishing all this stuff. And when they realized what kind of effect it had, they tried backtracking, but it was too late. It already got out into the world. But don't be surprised, they will go as far as to try to delete and get rid of evidence, just like in Nazi Germany. The videos and the images are there, and they are there for people to learn the truth. Unlike a lot of the images and videos coming out of Gaza, straight up Hollywood acted to invoke emotion only. When Israelis share information, share footage, it is for the purpose of seeing truth, seeing the ugly truth. Because when you see the ugly truth, you understand the level of evil you're dealing with. When you understand the level of evil you're dealing with, you understand that it's the moral thing to eradicate that evil. We're not sharing images and videos for sympathy. Gaza has a content production factory for sympathy. Every protest across the world, every rally, every president that gets up and says something that's pro-Palestine, all of this is fuel for them to keep doing what they're doing. When we share, we're sharing for the sole purpose of you understanding this is what happened. And if you're a sane, sober, moral, prudent human being, you would agree and understand that we need to eradicate the group that made that happen or the group that does things like that. It's really that simple. Israel doesn't need your sympathy. As you can see, with all of what's going on and everyone being against, and Israel doesn't give a rat's ass what you think of it. The Israeli government is always criticized by 80% of this world. By sharing the footage, it allows you a choice. You've seen it now. You understand morally we have a duty and obligation to solve that problem by any means necessary, whether you're going to like it or not, whether you agree with the strategy or not. This has to happen. It's going to happen, and you could understand why it has to happen. And if you don't, you could keep cheerleading, keep protesting. It's not going to change a damn thing. But without getting carried away, the takeaway here is not to allow social media and images to invoke too much emotion. Only allow it to determine a truth or a falsehood, if that's at all possible. Are some of the images of the rubble and babies being pulled out real? Some of them, the babies dying? Yes. That is a truth. That is truthfully taking place. There's nothing pretty about never again. There's nothing pretty about wiping out Hamas. This is war. This is horrible. This needs to be done. But it shouldn't go beyond that. Just like when we share footage of the truth, it doesn't need to go beyond the simple notion that that is the truth. And now we're going to take care by eradicating them. Gaza, Arabs in general, they're coming at it from a completely different approach. They're playing victim. They're pulling the victim card. They're getting under your skin. They're creating anti-Semitism. They're creating a huge divide. They're making you feel stuff that you shouldn't feel. They're making you hate. In a certain sense, they're radicalizing you. As I said in a previous video, they're gang raping you. There's deep, deep embedded agenda in the approach and everything that they're doing. Add to that probably 2/3 are complete and utter lies and fabrications. You are now getting worked up. It's moving you to want to take action over stuff that is simply untrue. We need to be very careful about this, not just with this war, but in general, in the world, in our times, until there's a real solution to an authority on information and verification. Now, to finish up, I will add my own opinions on how I think it's even possible for so many people to lie on the scale that they're lying, but still sleep at night and feel like a good person. First, I think there are different facets to this phenomenon. The first layer is pure and simple ignorance. You're going to have people, both in Gaza and outside of Gaza, who are simply ignorant. They don't have information. They've also grown up in extremism. They simply believe what people who are higher up in the social hierarchy are telling them, and it just ends there. I understand this to a degree. I grew up ultra-Orthodox in a type of system where you're told what and how to think about everything, and it doesn't really go much beyond that. By default, in such settings and circumstances, you will not only believe what the leaders are telling you, what your elders are telling you, you will be convicted in it. In other words, ignorance is bliss. You actually believe what you're saying. That's the first layer. These people are not lying intentionally. They're simply ignorant. If you go to the next layer, to those a bit higher on the food chain, who do have a bit more world experience, life experience, and worldly knowledge, many of them know the truth. They know that there are false pieces of information in what they're sharing. They know there's a lot of fabrication. But being in a more leadership position, they make all kinds of justifications for why they need to stick to a narrative, a story. It would touch on ethics and morality on one degree or another. It could be something as simple as it's for the greater good. It's for the country. It's for our people. It's for the ultimate. It's for blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? You attach some justification to it, helps you sleep at night, and you roll with it. You also think that because you did that psychologically, you're absolved in a certain degree. In reality, you're not. You're straight up lying and finding a way to sleep at night, but you don't feel that way. You don't even feel like you're lying because the ultimate truth matters more than the immediate truth. So if you're just fabricating some of the immediate truth for the ultimate truth, it's truthful. You might tell yourself stories like that. There's another layer, which is tribalism. See, I understand that all the Arabic countries and all the Arabic people would support Palestine because they're tribal. Most human beings are tribal. They're going to root for their team, for their people. That is so deeply embedded in our nature as human beings. I understand that. The beef is not with them per se. Okay, so you get pat, they're not intellectuals, they're not intellectually honest, they don't have integrity to that degree. They're being tribal. I can make sense of it. I can understand it. I don't condone it. Truth is the ultimate, but most human beings will fall into that category in some area of their life or another. The beef are with those who are not part of the tribe, which a majority seem to be the progressive left, so there's no surprise there. But how do they justify the lies? Why is it that when you show them evidence, or when you try to get them to say they condemn Hamas, why do they wiggle and weave and can't utter those words? Why are they lying despite evidence? It's a combination of ignorance and being possessed by evil. If you never knew what evil looked like, well, you could look at Hamas videos, that's evil. And you could look at a woke lefty or a self-hating Jew who, despite the information and despite knowing that the people that they're supporting would chop their head off in an instant. By the way, who do you think was at the music festival? You think it was only conservatives? You think there weren't peace-loving hippies there who would embrace Hamas supporters the way that these lefties do? I guarantee you there were plenty of those there. Hamas didn't discriminate. Despite seeing the evidence, despite knowing this, they lie because of their own agendas, to further their agendas and to hold on to a certain worldview that's very important to them, the oppressor, oppressed. That is a form of evil because in turn they are supporting a terrorist organization. And because in turn they're giving life to those suffering, those actually suffering in Gaza and in Israel, to continue a fight and a war that will result in more death. It's evil. The notion of how and why so many people could be lying, despite evidence, goes into much deeper ideas and philosophies and sociology. I'm not going to get into it. I could guarantee you, though, that there's like a psychopathy there that is fascinating, and it's something that should be studied.
Leave a like and subscribe. Subscribe.